All right, we're back. Did you comment? Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! If you haven't watched the video that leads up to this, the tube versus solid state,
which you really should.
Which you really should. It's a hoot. It's a holler. It's the ship sinks at the end. Sorry to give that away. Watch that though, and there's 4 amps. One of which is straight up solid state. One of which is hybrid, where there's some tubes at least in the preamp section. That's the Vox AV30. Solid state is the Peavey Bandit 112, the red stripe version. There's a Phaez Dragonfly, which is really like a Fender Blackface circuit by a guy up in Windsor, Ontario. And the last one is a Mesa Blue Angel, which is really Mesa's take on a Blackface with reverb and some other cool stuff, single channel amp. So those are the 4 amps. Tim chose 2 and 4 as being the ones he thought were the tube amps.
I don't know. You know what? I'll just sit there and hem and haw rather. So it was kind of like when you're on that gaming show and you say B, final answer. I just wanted to just
get it.
Be able to move along, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But how'd I do?
Number 4 was the Mesa Blue Angel.
Okay,
which was the amp he's been playing for the last 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that at least was a good thing to see that.
What was 2?
2's the Vox AV30.
All right.
So it's the hybrid.
But it does have
it's got a tube in the pre, but it's...
That one had the most gain on it. I should have recognized.
You could push it. It's a master volume.
Was 1 a tube amp?
1 was a tube amp. 1 is the Phaez Dragonfly was number 1. And number 3 was the Peavey Bandit.
Okay.
So, not bad run. But I think
Now, what is it about the Phaez that you think made me think it could be a tube amp?
The Phaez is a tube amp.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, the Phaez is the white one.
I was sort of on the
number
fence
1 was
with
a
that
tube.
one. Yeah.
Number 2 was the hybrid. Number 3 was the solid state. And number 4 was a tube.
Okay. So I got 1 right.
Yeah.
And I got 1/2 right. Because I
hybrid's
said
a
the
bit of a
first one
challenge.
could be. But the hybrid does have a tube in it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, I guess I didn't do too bad.
No,
I think it was an
the
interesting...
Peavey was at an interesting challenge because it's not a master volume amp.
Yeah.
So I couldn't crank it, roll the volume down, and you couldn't really hear it break up
Yeah.
without us really pumping the shit here.
Yeah.
So it made that a little bit hard, but at least you didn't guess the straight solid state. How hard was it though? Did anything surprise you about the process?
Well, I think the Vox fooled me because that had the most gain. And I just guessed, all right, well, most times if you push a tube, you're going to get breakup. Mm-hmm. And because I was hearing the most breakup there, it almost made me think, well, that must be a tube getting hot and being pushed. So that's why I guessed tube on 2. That would have been 2, right?
Yep.
1, I thought was just so on the line, like I couldn't quite tell. 3, they start to blend in after a while.
Yeah.
Nothing really leapt out at me at 3 as to say it was like good or bad or obviously.
It's a little more anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. And the 4, I don't know. I guess that might have been because I've been playing through the amp.
Yep.
But I mean, it would have been more of a dead giveaway if you put on the reverbs.
Yeah, and probably not though.
No.
The Vox AV30 is the only one with a digital reverb.
Yeah.
Both the Mesa and the Peavey have full spring reverb giant tanks in the bottom of the cab.
Yeah.
So you don't get. It's actually it's hard to tell in those two when you get up to that point. Maybe we'll try and do that in the future. We'll do a 3-way head-to-head tube versus solid state with the verbs playing in there too. How'd you guys do though? You gonna be honest in the comments? Who guess what? Hopefully, this came out. The video quality came out well.
Well, I guess this goes to show you that you can't necessarily turn your nose up immediately at something without hearing it. Which a lot of people like. What? It's not tube.
Well,
forget about it.
Let's do a little housekeeping too. Every amp was played out of the same 1x12 vintage 30 equipped Harley Benton cab, mic'd with a SM57 close diagonal, and then a M Audio Nova kind of setback for the room kind of audio tone. But basically, we did speaker out of all of them into that, so at least there's a same cab playing in there. I know the Vox AV30 can be boomy in certain settings, and it's because it's ported 10-inch the way they built it. But coming out of this thing, it's kind of mean. Likewise, yeah, I think this was probably the best cab that I own that could play with each of these amps.
For a hybrid amp, the ones that are out there, what section of the amp has the tube in it?
Preamp.
The preamp. So that
Usually.
means anytime you get gain, it's going to sound tubey.
Well, maybe. Because there's power amp gain and preamp gain, and it's a magical art.
Yeah.
But so it may sound tubey, but there are certain amps like Marshall. I'm going to screw this up, so I'll just say there are certain amps that derive their overdrive tones from the preamp side.
Yeah.
Or pushing it out of the pedals really pushes the preamp side. And there's certain ones where it's the power amp really humming that kind of gives you your distortion. And I think the rule of thumb is preamp distortion can be a little bit more shrill than power amp distortion, but by no means is that universal, and I could be completely wrong.
I wonder if we did this another way, is another aspect to this that made it difficult was like you're hearing the same speaker. Mm-hmm. So if you heard each amp coming through its own speaker, that might make a difference.
Could be something, but this way at least it gave you like a standard there. Yeah. Another way to do it is definitely to test it with like a Klon pedal in front of it or an overdrive and really see how it handles a pedal. And maybe we'll do that in a future video. We'll find out.
I was coming in more confident because I thought we were going to just hear each amp on its own.
Yeah, I wanted to make it like a standard type of thing.
Yeah. So
that you have an idea, how the amp itself works instead of kind of like the speaker and cab and all that. A lot of variables there. Sweet. All right. Hope you guys did well. As always, I've been Nick.
And I am Tim.
And obviously we got issues, folks. Take care.
See you later.